Host, Phillies PA announcer Dan Baker and Mickey Morandini.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Chickies and Pete's. We're going to talk Phillies baseball, and the trade deadline is tomorrow. And we've got a couple of experts who are going to tell us what the Phillies are going to do.
Oh, yeah.
And when I tell you about their backgrounds, you'll know why I speak so highly of them. First, my co-hosts, Mickey, Tommy Green, Gary Matthews have been rotating as hosts this year on the Bull Session and doing a terrific job. Mickey Morandini was a 1995 National League All-Star. He played 9 of his 11 seasons with the Phillies, 1990 to 2000, and was a member of the 1993 National League champions. Mickey ranks 4th in Phillies history in most games played at second base. He was the recipient of the Paul Owens Award in 1989 as the best player in the Phillies minor league system. Mickey was originally selected by the Phillies in the 5th round of the June 1988 draft out of Indiana University. As an amateur, he won a gold medal as a member of the 1988 United States Olympic baseball team. Ladies and gentlemen, my co-host from the Philadelphia Phillies, number 12, second baseman, Mickey Morandini.
Never gets old. Never gets old.
Well, Mickey, you're doing a great job. Every time I look up on the TV, I see you or Milt, our wonderful ambassadors, out in the community doing terrific things for young people in our area, sometimes old people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're an important part of Phillies history, Mickey, and it's an honor to have you on here.
Thank you.
For so many of our shows.
It's an honor to be on here with you.
Oh, thank you, Mickey. Now, I mentioned the trade deadline tomorrow. How many think the Phillies are going to do something? How many think the Phillies should do something? All right, here's the first trade. We're going to announce it right here. No, we're not. No, we. I want to tell you who our special guest is, who can give you some inside information about what takes place at the trade deadline. He is a Narberth, Pennsylvania native, the former general manager of both the San Diego Padres and the New York Mets. I'm going to let him tell you about one of the highest profile trades that was made by him and Pat Gillick, Hall of Fame general manager in the 1990s, as well as a couple of his other great acquisitions. And how about this? As the scouting director for the New York Mets, among others, he selected the great right-handed pitcher Dwight Gooden, who, if I'm not mistaken, or if I didn't misunderstand Joe on the phone yesterday, won 41 games, Joe, before his 21st birthday?
That's correct. Yep.
Has anybody else ever done that?
The only one I could think that might challenge that was Bob Feller, only because he started in the big leagues when he was 17. But I've never really looked it up, so I can't give you the... But anytime a 19 and 20-year-old wins 41 games in the big leagues, that's noteworthy.
Let me also say that Joe pitched for 5 years in the Detroit Tigers farm system and as an amateur, and I talked to the director of the Bridgeton tournament, Joe, invited him to come up today, and he had already had something else. Dave Hitchner is his name. but Joe struck out 17 in a game in the Bridgeton tournament. Mickey, did you ever play in that?
I did not.
Greg played in that. Mickey Mantle played in that. You'd be surprised at some of the big names that played. But ladies and gentlemen, how about a nice round of applause? Joining us tonight, the former general manager of the Padres and the Mets, Joe McIlvaine.
Thank you.
And Joe, why don't we start right off by you sharing with this wonderful audience the big trade that you consummated with Pat Gillick, and set the scene. It was exciting. It was applauded. And who was involved, Joe?
Well, I went out to San Diego as the general manager at the end of 1990. And when I looked around at the ball club, we were losing a first baseman, we had no shortstop, and we had a couple extra outfielders. So we needed a shortstop, and we needed a first baseman badly. And Pat Gillick came to me at the winter meetings very quietly and said, would you be interested in trading us Joe Carter? I said, well, yeah, that's possible. What would you be offering me in return? He said, I've got a young first baseman named John Olerud who's going to get most of the playing time, and we've got Fred McGriff who's terrific, you know, and is my wife's favorite player, and I really don't want to trade him, but if I had to, I would trade you Fred McGriff for Joe Carter. And I thought that was pretty good. But then he started saying, I also would like to get Roberto Alomar in the trade. Now, Alomar at the time was about 20, 21 years old, was in the big leagues already, and was going to be a star player if he wasn't already. But he was our second baseman, and I figured I could get a second baseman somewhere. We had a few on the horizon as well, but we had no shortstop. And we needed a shortstop badly, and he offered me Tony Fernandez, who was an established major league shortstop and an all-star. So after some consternation and talking and all, within a day's time, we made that trade. So we traded 4 all-stars, and probably it's one of the biggest trades ever in the history of baseball.
Where did you make the announcement, and what was the media's reaction to it?
We were at the winter meetings, and Pat Gillick got up and announced the trade. He started announcing players, and I think he announced Joe Carter first, and all the assembled sports writers and media people went, oh! And then he announced the next 3 players as well, and after every one there was the same thing, same reaction. And I've been to a lot of winter meetings, but this was the first time I ever saw the sports writers and the media people stand up and clap for a trade. And it was just very surprising that they would do that. But, you know, when you get 4 all-stars in a trade, think about your baseball life and all the years you've watched baseball and all. It doesn't happen very often, if ever.
Joe McIlvaine, former general manager of the Padres and the Mets. The trade deadline is tomorrow. What time of the year did that trade take place that you just spoke of?
That was in December at the winter meeting.
How about at the trade deadline? Were you ever able to pull off a blockbuster at the trade deadline?
If I remember right, I think we got Frank Viola with the Mets right at the trade deadline, and we got it right at the trading deadline was midnight, and I think we agreed on it at 11:57, if I'm not mistaken, at night. I think that was the trade.
From Minnesota?
Yeah, from Minnesota, and you had to call it into the commissioner's office, and if you're not in there by midnight, it's no good. But the Twins had a line already established into the commissioner's office and called it 11:59 to make it official before 12 o'clock.
What happens if the line's busy when you call 11:59?
Don't mention that, Mickey. Well, there's a lot of things that happen like that, that can negate things or mess things up. And certainly when you come right to the very wire, that is the risk you take. But that's the way it worked out, because they didn't want to give up some people, and we didn't want to give up some people. And finally, when you have 5 minutes left, you say, all right, let's do it.
Mickey, let me ask you a question about one of the most popular teams in the history of Phillies baseball. You're 1993 National League champions. Midway through the year, the Phillies brought up Kevin Stocker.
Yeah.
And you guys became that Keystone combination. What a contribution he made. And do you remember any big trades that were consummated at the deadline that affected the Phillies' fortunes in the second half of the year during your 11-year tenure?
Well, my years here was one winning season, and that was 93. So usually at the deadline, we were probably giving players away as opposed to receiving them. But I do remember, not a big-name player, but that 93 team, we went out and got Roger Mason. And he became a huge part of that bullpen for us. And it wasn't a big trade at the time, but it ended up being a really, really good trade for us. And he pitched tremendously in the back end of that bullpen for us down in 93. But other than that, we really didn't make any big trades. There were always some rumors Randy Johnson was going to come here at one point. Yeah, we really didn't make too many big trades because by the middle to end of July, we were always out of the race when I was here, unfortunately.
Dan, it's really important in a trade, especially at the end, to know your other general manager you're dealing with, because some are decisive and some aren't. And some you got to push and some just are afraid. And so a lot of times you'll get toward the end and it'll fall apart simply because maybe the other team just can't make up their minds.
Yeah. Would you say that July for a general manager is the most stressful month of any month during the year with the draft and trade deadline?
Well, see, it was different before. The draft used to be, up until a couple of years ago, the first week of June.
Okay.
Because we had all the rookie teams to send them out to. Now the owners have cut some of the rookie teams out, so they moved it back so that it would be more visible, I guess, to the fans.
Right.
They could see what was going on. So that's one thing. And what was the other one you mentioned?
Just the trade deadline. Is that your most stressful time, you think?
Well, not necessarily, but it depends on the situation you're in, whether you're trying to add or subtract.
Right.
If you're subtracting, it's not as vital as when you're trying to add. And it used to be that the trading deadline was August 31st.
Right.
Again, up until a few years ago. So that has changed.
Yep.
Well, here we are. This Phillies team, Mickey and Joe, looks eerily similar to last year's group in terms of record, in terms of inconsistency, but showing flashes of what could be a playoff team. Mm-hmm. And even though we've just come off of two disappointing losses to the Pirates and Pittsburgh, probably games the Phillies should have won, we're still in the thick of that wild card race. I don't know that anybody's catching the Braves, Mickey or Joe. They don't lose. But look what the Phillies did last year as the last team to qualify for the playoffs and went all the way to the World Series and took the Astros to 6 games. And Mickey, first, you being the one identified more closely with the Phillies than Joe.
Yeah.
What do you think the Phillies need? What do you think is realistic they can do? And do you expect something to happen?
Yeah, I think it's been a disappointing year from my aspect. I mean, they went out and got Turner. They strengthened their bullpen. They got Tajon Walker. I feel they were a much better team to start this year than they finished last year. I took down some notes here of their stats right now, and if coming into the year I would have told you this offense is going to be really good, I have some concerns with the pitching. Well, it's been kind of reversed because I got stats here, and we're 4th in ERA in the National League, good. We're 5th in saves, good. We're 4th in quality starts, 2nd in fewest walks, we're 3rd in strikeouts, and then we're 1st in whip. That's pretty good for pitching staff.
Sure is.
But the offense is what has me concerned. We're 9th in runs scored, so we're in the bottom half of runs scored in the National League. We're 6th in hits, which is pretty good. We're getting on base. We're 3rd in doubles. We're 2nd in triples. But the issue is we're not hitting home runs like we thought we would. We're 10th. we're near the bottom in the National League in home runs and RBIs. And our biggest thing is we cannot hit with guys in scoring position. It's been horrible. And that's why we're not scoring a lot of runs. We're not hitting the home runs, and we're not driving in runners when they're in scoring position. And that's been an issue. So can this team get hot? Absolutely. They can get hot and run off 8-10 in a row without a doubt. And I feel that they're the best team. Of all those teams that are in the wild card hunt, I feel we have the most talent. So I think we're going to be all right. We have a nice stretch of games here where we're playing lesser teams. This is our chance to jump out in front of everybody.
As a former all-star infielder, what happened on that pop-up yesterday between third and short? Was it miscommunication? Was somebody at fault? Just one of those things. Of course, Trey Turner, Edmundo Sosa come together, the ball drops, and a very bad error.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what happened, but normally it's miscommunication. Normally the shortstop has priority over the third baseman, so
right.
If you're going to blame someone, you blame the shortstop on that. But the defense in general the last week or so has been horrible. We've missed balls in the outfield. We've thrown balls away. It has not been pretty out there. We've given away a couple of games because of our defense, and that's got to tighten up.
You know, Mickey, if I might, I think that's throughout baseball right now. I've never seen fundamentals defensively and running the bases that have been so violated, let's say. And I can't tell you why. I don't know whether they don't work it on enough in spring training or what's the deal. But it's just you watch games and you'll see every single game you watch has a major flaw on either defense or running the bases in particular.
Joe McIlvaine, former San Diego Padres and New York Mets general manager, is Mickey Morandini's and my guest tonight on the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session. We'll be right back with the second segment of tonight's show in just a moment.
Hi, it's Pete from Chicky and Pete's. It's all new and it's all for you. The heated deck at Chicky and Pete's on the Boulevard is now open. It's enclosed, heated, and perfect for the ultimate in-game experience or live music when the best local bands take the stage. Like LeComp, Fat Mez, or Jameson. Check our website for the band schedule. The heated deck at Chicky and Pete's on the Boulevard is now open every Thursday through Sunday. Chickies and Pete's.
Millions of Americans are losing their medical assistance or Medicaid coverage. If this affects you, Independence Blue Cross can help. You may be eligible to enroll in a health plan for as little as $0 a month. With Independence Blue Cross, you get the largest provider network in the area, including most Keystone First doctors and hospitals. We also offer free 24/7 telemedicine, coverage for hospital stays and prescriptions. See if you qualify for $0 health insurance and enroll today. Call Independence Blue Cross at 1-844-464-2583 or visit ibx.com/staycovered.
If you're looking for a stylish and sophisticated fine dining experience, visit your Eddie V's Prime Seafood restaurant near King of Prussia. Eddie V's Seafood features an abundant selection of fine wines and curated cocktails to complement exquisite steaks and seafood made from the highest quality ingredients. In the V Lounge, sip on imaginative handcrafted cocktails with attitude while enjoying signature appetizers. Conveniently located between I-276 and I-76 near the King of Prussia Mall. Call them today, 610-337-7823 to schedule your night out for Eddie V's Prime Seafood.
There really is nothing like a home team advantage. That's why Team Toyota makes a great choice for your next vehicle purchase or service. With our MVP pricing guarantee, teammate rewards program, and streamlined customer experience, our award-winning operation ensures that you can trust our process. A home team advantage is nothing without the community. Our employees are part of our family, part of your town, and we're all part of the team. We're always here for you at one of our 3 locations in Princeton, Langhorne, and Glen Mills, or at teamtoyota.net.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
We now return to the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session. Once again, here are your hosts, Phillies PA announcer Dan Baker and Mickey Morandini.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Chickies and Pete's and the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session. In case anybody doesn't know, we're broadcast live on WBCB 1490 AM as well as 107.3 FM. You can hear us anywhere in the world on the radio station website www.wbcb1490.com. We are also live streamed, so on YouTube. If you'd like to know more about Mickey Morandini and Joe McIlvaine and me, Dan Baker, join us on one of those mediums. We'd be happy to have you. Every week, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, we pick out an Independence Blue Cross Live Fearless Phillies Player of the Week. And that is usually done by our celebrity co-host. So, Mickey Morandini, who would you nominate as the Player of the Week for the Phillies for this week?
You know, I'm normally biased towards position players.
Hey, easy. I was a pitcher.
I know. But I'm going to go with Christopher Sanchez. I mean, for the last 6 weeks, he's probably been our most consistent starter. And a couple days ago, he just pitched 5 innings, no hits. I know he walked a few, and I think he hit a couple batters. But he's been great. Last year, he couldn't find the strike zone, and now he's throwing strikes. He's got that changeup working, the slider's better. So we're going with Christopher Sanchez as our Player of the Week.
All right, let me follow up on that and say, would that tend to make you think that the object of Phillies trade interest at the deadline might not be a starter, but maybe somebody in the bullpen or a right-handed hitting outfielder?
Well, I'd like to see all three, to be honest with you. We do need another bat. I never thought I'd have to say that, but I do think we need another right-handed bat. We've had some injuries in that bullpen, which are a little bit of concern, so I think we need another arm down there. And our depth at starting pitching is not very deep. So we need another starter, even if it's just like a third, fourth, fifth guy that can come in and give you innings. That would be great. But I think their number one priority now, with the way this offense is struggling, would be a bat.
Bailey Falter, by the way, over the last month has had, I think, like a 1.95 ERA at Lehigh Valley. Joe McIlvaine, as an expert in the front office, and someone who's not affiliated with the Phillies, like Mickey and I are, what do you see as needs for the Phillies? What do you think is possible for them to do to strengthen their club?
Boy, that's a tough one because I'm not talking with the other teams like you do normally, but I think Mickey identified it pretty good. And I think that you're right in the sense that a bat is almost mandatory right now. If you're going to contend, you've got to score runs. Obviously, you got to stop runs too. Texas has taken the opposite approach. Texas has Chris Young as their general manager, the former 6'10" pitcher, and you'll notice he went out and got Scherzer, and now he just got the guy from the Cardinals too, Montgomery, the former Yankee, and he had 4 starters already. His approach was you can't have too much pitching. So you can make that argument as a counter to getting the hitter. But I think your first step is you need to score more runs, and I think a hitter's first. Then you can get into the pitching. Dave Dombrowski, by the way, I thought did a marvelous job this winter of rebuilding a bullpen that was very suspect last year.
And it's possible, right? You go out and get a hitter, and maybe there's a bullpen arm on that team that you're interested in, and maybe you get a little package deal, throw another prospect in or something, and you kill 2 birds with 1 stone with a trade.
Yeah, it depends who you're trading with and whether they're willing to do something like that.
Now, Joe, you've been in this position with the Padres, with the Mets, and there's a game of cat and mouse, I guess, that goes on almost right up until the deadline. And obviously, the sellers are going to try to get as much as they can. The buyers want to pay as little as they possibly can.
Yep.
And Do you expect a flurry as we get closer? Do you expect? I think I just saw that another trade was consummated.
Aaron Savali from Cleveland was just traded.
Okay.
Yep.
To whom? Do you know?
I'm forgetting offhand.
Okay.
But I just saw he was traded.
But
I know. It was Tampa. They traded
he
to
went
Tampa.
to Tampa. Yep.
Yeah. And that's unusual for Tampa because they're taking a contract with a little bit of money. You know, Tampa has survived and been terrific on a low budget, and you gotta congratulate them all the time for what they do.
It's amazing what they're able to accomplish on that budget. My brother-in-law lives in Tampa, and you know I think they average less than $20,000 a game down there.
Yeah.
And but heavens, they have, you know, they draft well, they develop well. Every year they're one of the contenders, and they are again.
Well, drafting is probably the most important thing. You know, your most underrated member of your organization is probably your director of scouting, because you've got to have people coming along the pipeline. With today's number of injuries and all, you got to have somebody you can reach down and get, because you can't always trade for somebody. You know, trading is difficult. It takes two parties, and sometimes they're trying to take too much from you, which you're not willing to give up. But if you have a ready-made player you can bring up and give some exposure to him, and he's going to contribute, that's the key thing. So it really comes back to drafting and signing the players and developing, having a good development system.
Now, here's something else, Joe. You texted me this afternoon and raised as a topic the non-physical component of players and evaluating them and whether they can contribute to your club. How do you do that?
Well, let me give you 3 examples of that. And what Dan is referring to is ability is great, and it takes you so far, but guys just don't survive just on their ability alone. You know, you have to have something inside you that goes it. The late, great Dallas Green always described it as head and heart. Years ago, when I went down to the Dominican Republic, which I spent a lot of time in Latin America, they told me one day, I said, what's the secret to developing players and makeup? They said, it's the 3 C's. And I said, the 3 C's, what's that? He pointed to his head and he said, his cabeza. He pointed to his heart and he said, his corazón. And then he opened and spread his legs and said, and it's also cajones.
Oh, okay.
So I thought that was about as good a description as you're going to get.
Okay.
Then, when I went to work for the Baltimore Orioles in 1974, after I finished playing, we had a scouting director named Dave Ritterpush, who had just come out of the military and was very much into the military and training, and we got involved with a sports service called the ISOM people. And they had a test, which was presented to each player that we were going to draft or were interested. It took about 45 minutes to take. But it measured qualities. It had 12 different qualities that it was measuring about. And we found that the 3 most important qualities were self-confidence. You've got to believe in yourself because there's so many hills and valleys in the sport. The second thing was emotional control. And that was the ability to get to the plate with the bases loaded and 50,000 people yelling and screaming at you. Stay calm, stay cool, and just do what you can do. And we had a player we drafted right when I was there named Eddie Murray, who was probably the prime example of that. He was unflappable. And the third thing is mental toughness. Even the most successful hitter is going to fail 7 out of 10 times. And pitchers are going to give up home runs. They're not going to pitch a shutout every time they go out there. You have to be able to bounce back, at-bat to at-bat and game to game and day to day. And those 3 things are 3 things I learned from the people about what I thought were probably the most important things. So when we drafted a player, even at the high school or college level, and we had that test on them, when we had a close choice to make, a lot of times we would make the choice based upon who had the better test with the better and stronger makeup. Because if you have 5 players with about equal ability, 2 of them are going to get better, 1 of them is going to stay about the same, and 2 of them are probably going to fall by the wayside. Why is that? Because of makeup.
When Bill Giles when the Phillies traded for Pete Rose for the 1979 baseball season, a lot of people thought he was the blood and guts that the Phillies were missing to put that very talented nucleus over the top. And of course, although they didn't accomplish it in '79, they won their first ever World Series in 1980. Pete is an example of Larry Boa, I submit, is an example of players who had so much heart and worked so hard and made them into significant contributors for their team.
Lenny Dykstra's another one.
Lenny Dykstra's another. Number 4, center fielder Lenny Dykstra. We'll be back with the second half of the Bull session when Chris Hermer allows us.
You're listening to 1490 WBCB, Levittown, Fairless Hills, Trenton, and now heard as well on FM at 107.3 FM, W297CL, Levittown.
Hi, it's Pete from Chicky and Pete's. It's all new and it's all for you. The heated deck at Chicky and Pete's on the Boulevard is now open. It's enclosed, heated, and perfect for the ultimate in-game experience or live music when the best local bands take the stage. Like LeComp, Fat Mez, or Jameson. Check our website for the band schedule. The heated deck at Chicky and Pete's on the Boulevard is now open every Thursday through Sunday. Chickies and Pete's.
At Independence Blue Cross, we believe in giving you the tools you need to pursue your healthiest life. From premiums as low as $0 per month to health discounts and cash rewards, it pays to have coverage with Independence. With the strongest network of doctors and hospitals in the region and free 24/7 virtual doctor visits, you can feel confident that quality care is always within reach. Learn more about your coverage options at ibx.com.
If you're looking for a stylish and sophisticated fine dining experience, visit your Eddie V's Prime Seafood restaurant near King of Prussia. Eddie V's Seafood features an abundant selection of fine wines and curated cocktails to complement exquisite steaks and seafood made from the highest quality ingredients. In the V Lounge, sip on imaginative handcrafted cocktails with attitude while enjoying signature appetizers. Conveniently located between I-276 and I-76 near the King of Prussia Mall. Call them today, 610-337-7823 to schedule your night out for Eddie V's Prime Seafood.
I SEPTA Philly. I SEPTA Philly. I SEPTA Philly. I ride the Broad Street line. Do you know how expensive parking is?
I do not have time to deal with traffic.
Because it's better for the environment.
I ride SEPTA all the time.
Monday through Friday, and whenever game day is. I'm out the door and at my stop by 7:30.
I catch up on work when I ride.
I check Twitter, text my buddies.
I watch sports highlights, or lowlights.
For real Philly fans, SEPTA is the hometown way to go. Ride with us at iseptaphilly.com.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
We now return to the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session. Once again, here are your hosts, Phillies PA announcer Dan Baker and Mickey Morandini.
Hello, everybody. My goodness, I'm so proud of my co-host and our special guest tonight, and especially on this night, the trade deadline, and we have all the big TVs scattered around Chickies and Pete's flagship at 1526 Packer, and you see different trades coming up. And I keep breaking news. There it is, Joe and Mickey. Keep looking to see if the Phils are going to do something. And I have to think that they will, given. Hey, by the way, you know who I talked to this afternoon? Nick Leyva.
Oh.
Remember Nick? He's out in Arizona. He's been there for 8 years.
Nick Leyva.
And
Wow.
I didn't know what had become of him, or if he lived in the Norristown area for a long time.
Yeah.
And wanted to say
He's
hello.
had some health issues, I believe, right? Or no?
Not that I was
No?
aware
Okay.
of, but I didn't ask him, and maybe he didn't want to talk about it if he did. But a good guy, and I think of the Phillies family, Mickey, and how lucky we are, and we've got alumni weekend coming up in a few weeks, and there's a lot of good things going on. Joe McIlvaine, when you think back to your time with the Padres and Mets as general manager, would you pick out two of your proudest moments with each?
Oh, geez. Well,
I know there's many, but could you limit it to one or two?
Well, I think the trade we talked about earlier, and then following that up the next year, we got Gary Sheffield from the Brewers, and our lineup in the first 5 guys were Tony Fernandez, who was a switch hitter, Tony Gwynn, Hall of Famer, left-hand hitter, Gary Sheffield, a right-hand hitter, Fred McGriff, a left-hand hitter, and Benito Santiago, a right-hand hitter. That was our first 5 guys, and believe me, pitchers did not want to come in and pitch to that lineup because it was nasty. And I think with the Mets, probably watching the development of the players you drafted as scouting director, watching them come to the big leagues and arrive and stay. We drafted and signed in 1982 in the draft. We got Dwight Gooden. 48% of the players we signed actually played in the big leagues, which is still a record, which was the most ever in one draft that got to the big leagues. Normally, if you draft 100, if 100 players are drafted, normally 10 to 14% of them are ultimately going to get their name in a major league box score. So when you could get 48% in one draft, that was exceptional. And that's a real credit to the scouting staff, because the scouts are the most underrated people in your organization. You don't hear about them.
Who were some of the others in that draft? Do you recall, Joe?
The first 3 guys were Dwight Gooden, Floyd Yeomans, who eventually got traded to the Expos for Gary Carter. And the 3rd guy that year was Roger McDowell. We had Gerald Young that was in that trade, in that same thing. And I'm going to go back a year now and give you 2 stories. First year I was scouting director, 81. We took a guy in the 12th round from the state of Texas. He was a junior college pitcher. And we had a rookie scout in Texas that year. And he was the only guy that saw him. So I drafted him in the 12th round, and I wanted somebody else to go see him because about the money portion of it. Well, Harry Minor was our national cross-checker, lived in California. He was going down to see the Astros play shortly after the draft. So I said, Harry, while you're there, I want you to go over and see this kid pitch. So he did, and he saw him. I said, Harry, he wants $25,000. Now, this is 1981. He wants $25,000. Would you give it to him? He says, nope, I'd give him $15,000 tops. You're sure? Okay, so we offered him 15, and he turned it down. He said, I got to have 25. So I went back twice with the major league team in July and in August. And both times I went over to try and see him pitch, and wouldn't you know, both times I get rained out. So what happens? That 12th draft choice goes and transfers to the University of Texas. And in 1986, we're playing the World Series against a guy named Roger Clemens, pitching for the Boston Red Sox against the New York Mets. And the next guy we picked, we had a tryout camp before the draft in 1981. And all the players were saying, we had some really good-looking players in Southern California. Roger Youngward, who became the scouting director ultimately for the Mariners, was the area scout, and Harry Minor was there as well. Well, we get this tryout camp just about ready to go, and this little guy walks in. He's about 5'8", maybe 150 pounds. And he walks over to Harry Minor and says, okay, I'm here. He says, well, who are you? He says, my name's Lenny Dykstra. Oh, well, he says, and he said, now this is a high school kid pointing to a veteran scout. He says, and I'm the best player you're going to see here today. Okay. So we send him out to the outfield to get ready, and the first thing you do in a tryout camp, you run the 60-yard dash. Doesn't he run 6'4", and he beats every kid there? The next thing you do with the outfielders, you put them in the outfield, you have them throw a couple throws to third, couple throws to home. Who has the best arm of all the ones out there? Lenny Dykstra. He goes up to the plate and he hits line drives. And I say to our scout, Crepes, just because he's little, I'd take this kid in the third round. He says, Joe, you don't have to. You can take him anywhere you want. Nobody else is interested in him. Oh. So I'm the scouting director. So about the third, after the Roger Clemens, I take a guy named Lenny Dykstra in the 13th round. We go in to sign him, and he doesn't want to sign right away. He's going to go play in Colorado for the summer. Finally, he comes back from Colorado. We sign him because he wanted to go to A-ball. He refused to sign unless we sent him to A-ball instead of the rookie league because I'm too good. So, all right, finally we relented and said, all right, we'll send you to Shelby, North Carolina, which was our low A-ball club. Well, the next year he goes to Lynchburg. He leads the league. He's the MVP along with Dwight Gooden as the pitcher of the year, and the rest is history. And Mickey, you could talk about Mr. Dykstra a little bit. We ended up trading him at the end of 1989 to the Phillies.
Him and Roger, right? Him and McDowell, right?
Him and McDowell. It was one of our worst trades, as it turned out, because we trade Dykstra, and he goes on to really have a great time, and Roger McDowell, of course, was a good pitcher. We get Juan Samuel because the reason we traded Dykstra was the manager at the time was Davey Johnson. He didn't want Dykstra on his team. He didn't like him. And every single day he would come through the door, he would come up to her, did you trade Dykstra yet? Did you trade Dykstra yet? Did you trade Dykstra yet? He'll deny that, but he did. And so finally we ended up trading him. Ended up being a bad trade. We get Juan Samuel. We're going to play him. We're going to move him from second base to center field. He's going to play center field for the New York Mets. Well, at the end of the year, and he didn't play that well for us. The end of the year, he comes into my office at the last day of the season, and he says to me, he starts crying. I mean, real tears. He says, when we got here, my wife and I, the first 2 weeks we were here, our house got broken into, and we lost all our stuff. And then a month ago, our car got stolen. Can you please trade me somewhere else? I can't stay here in New York. So we ended up trading them then to Los Angeles and compounded your mistake. But those things happen. You don't read about them in the papers or anything like that, but it's going to happen. And that was the story on those two things.
Mickey, Joe alluded to stories you might have about Lenny. And during our last commercial break, you were talking about the impact of Lenny Dykstra on the 93 national champions, of which you were an important part. Could you expound on that, please?
Yeah, I mean, he should have been MVP that year. He had tremendous numbers. Played every day. I mean, his biggest issue as he got a little bit older was health. He couldn't stay healthy, but when he was on the field, he was usually 100%. One of the best players on the field. I mean, I remember
110%. Maybe.
Yeah, he played the game the right way. He played hard. He played focused. He wanted to make money playing the game. I mean, it was all about how much money can he make, which isn't always a bad thing, I guess. But I remember he would hit first and I would hit second a lot, and we'd be, coming up in that first inning, and he'd go, "Hey, Miggy, I'm going to run this count 3-2. I'm going to be patient, and then I'm going to go deep." And he'd go up there, he'd run the count to 3-2, and he'd hit a home run. I mean, he was phenomenal. He was very focused. He had a very good baseball IQ. He knew how to play the game, great base runner. And I learned a lot from him. He was a great ball player.
That 93 team, of course, the Phils were in last place the year before, 92. But from day one to the last day of the season, the Phillies ran the table.
Yeah.
First place all the way.
Wow.
Beat the Braves. And speaking of Fred McGriff, I remember a home run by Fred McGriff in the 93.
Oh, yeah, that went a long way.
Into the upper deck at the Veterans Stadium. Holy mackerel.
The three of the players that you were involved in that trade was Fernandez, Alomar, and Carter, and they were all on the Blue Jays when they beat us in 93.
Yeah, that's right.
It's time for another break. And, boy, isn't this interesting, talking with former Phillies All-Star second baseman Mickey Morandini and former Padres and Mets general manager Joe McIlvaine. I'm Dan Baker. We'll be back in just a moment.
Hi, it's Pete from Chicky and Pete's. It's all new and it's all for you. The heated deck at Chicky and Pete's on the Boulevard is now open. It's enclosed, heated, and perfect for the ultimate in-game experience or live music when the best local bands take the stage. Like LeComte, Fat Mez, or Jameson. Check our website for the band schedule. The heated deck at Chicky and Pete's on the Boulevard is now open every Thursday through Sunday. Chickies and Pete's.
Millions of Americans are losing their medical assistance or Medicaid coverage. If this affects you, Independence Blue Cross can help. You may be eligible to enroll in a health plan for as little as $0 a month. With Independence Blue Cross, you get the largest provider network in the area, including most Keystone First doctors and hospitals. We also offer free 24/7 telemedicine, coverage for hospital stays and prescriptions. See if you qualify for $0 health insurance and enroll today. Call Independence Blue Cross at 1-844-464-2583 or visit ibx.com/staycovered.
If you're looking for a stylish and sophisticated fine dining experience, visit your Eddie V's Prime Seafood restaurant near King of Prussia. Eddie V's Seafood features an abundant selection of fine wines and curated cocktails to complement exquisite steaks and seafood made from the highest quality ingredients. In the V Lounge, sip on imaginative handcrafted cocktails with attitude while enjoying signature appetizers. Conveniently located between I-276 and I-76 near the King of Prussia Mall. Call them today, 610-337-7823 to schedule your night out for Eddie V's Prime Seafood.
There really is nothing like a home team advantage. That's why Team Toyota makes a great choice for your next vehicle purchase or service. With our MVP pricing guarantee, teammate rewards program, and streamlined customer experience, our award-winning operation ensures that you can trust our process. A home team advantage is nothing without the community. Our employees are part of our family, part of your town, and we're all part of the team. We're always here for you at one of our 3 locations in Princeton, Langhorne, and Glen Mills, or at teamtoyota.net.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
We now return to the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session. Once again, here are your hosts, Phillies PA announcer Dan Baker and Mickey Morandini.
Welcome back, everybody, to Chickies and Pete's in South Philadelphia, in the heart of the Philadelphia Sports Complex. Well, I'll tell you, this is just such a great place to come. There's always a lot of people here. There's always a lot of fun. There's sports, whatever sports are being broadcast live or on TV, and I can remember being here in the past for some special events, Mickey and Joe, and like when Matt Stairs hit that home run into the night in 2008 in Los Angeles, and we had a special promotion here that night. There was not a place you could stand. It was standing room all the way around this place. Okay, we have one more segment of tonight's Independence Blue Cross Bull Session, and we're going to talk about the Phillies and their rivals for the remaining playoff spots. But Joe McIlvaine, you are a Philadelphia native, Narberth. You went to Lower Merion High School. Everybody knows that Kobe Bryant went to Lower Merion High School. And you just dropped a big name on me as well. Who else went to Lower Merion High School?
General Alexander Haig.
Wow. There's probably a lot more than that. That's a very good high school. So, Joe, how did it evolve? I know you were a very good pitcher. Presumably you had a great career in that regard at Lower Merion. And you played in the Detroit Tigers system. Tell us how your baseball career evolved in a few moments.
Well, I probably have the most unusual way of arriving into professional baseball. After Lower Merion, I entered St. Charles Seminary in Philadelphia to become a priest. And I was there for 4 years. And you were there all the time except in the summers. You got out for the summer. So I played on a semi-pro team in Narberth called in the Pendel League. And the tournament where I got discovered was that Bridgeton tournament. scouts hadn't seen me, because when I graduated from Lower Merion, and we won the Division I championship there, but I weighed 130 pounds, and I was about 6 feet tall. I was just a skinny little right-hander, had a pretty good curveball, and could throw strikes, and we ended up winning. But by the time I got to be 21 years old in the seminary, I was about 6'5" or 6'6", and I weighed about 160 or 70 by then. So my fastball had gotten a little bit better, and curveball too. And I got seen in that Bridgeton tournament, and I got approached by scouts. And there was a January draft then, and I got drafted by the Tigers in the January draft. And I had to make a choice to stay in the seminary or to give professional baseball a shot. And to me, if I didn't give professional baseball a shot, I would be wondering the rest of my life whether or not I could have made it or not. I could always go back into the seminary, because there were 4 more years after that. You know, the seminary is 4 years of college and 4 years of theology. So I went at the point where I finished the college department, and I guess I really never looked back, because I played 5 years in the minors, but as a pitcher, and had some success, but not enough to get me to the big league level.
Our dear friend Don DeJulia, a basketball and baseball star at St. Joseph's University, also went to St. Charles after he graduated from Hawk Hill. And I'll tell you, one of the great administrators in the NCAA. Mickey Morandini and Joe McIlvaine, starting with Mickey here. How do you see the season unfolding? Who do you think, Mick, are going to win the divisions? And who do you see as the wild cards going forward?
Yeah, well, Atlanta's going to win our division. I'm pretty sure about that one. The Central, it's a good battle. We got the Reds and the Brewers battling it out. The Cubs have made a run here. I think they've won 7 or 8 in a row and gotten back into the thing. So that's going to come down to the end, I think. And out west, I still got to go with the Dodgers. I still think they're the best team out there. The Giants have surprised me. I didn't think they'd be that good this year as they are. But I hate to say it. I really hate to say it, but Gabe's doing a really good job out there. But the wild card, we got 5 teams, I think, in the mix. And the Padres and Cubs are creeping up on them, too. So it's going to come down probably to the last week. And I still think, like I said, we're the most talented team in that wild card mix, but we really got to get this offense going. We got to play better defense and really pray our starting pitching stays healthy.
Is it a shock to you, after the magnificent numbers that he put up for a decade with Washington and the Los Angeles Dodgers, that Trey Turner is struggling so much?
Yeah. Very surprised. I thought he'd come in here and beat Trey Turner. I thought he'd steal 50 bases and really spark this offense at the top of the order and score 100 runs. And it's kind of like Castellanos last year. He came in and really struggled, and then this year he's been much better, even though he struggled of late. But, I don't know if Trey's ever really failed before. You know what I mean? I'm sure he never failed when he was young, and then he had really good years in Washington and out in L.A. He played good. So this is probably one of the first few times that he's seen some failure for an extended period of time. And I'm going to be honest, he's not handling it very well right now. So he's got to be able to handle some failure here and get it going. However he's got to do it, bunts. Infield hits, bloopers, whatever it's got to be. I almost think when he played in the World Baseball Classic and he hit those 6 home runs, I almost think he thought he was a power hitter, and he kind of changed his swing and started uppercutting a little bit, and he's not a power hitter. He can hit you 15 home runs a year. Yeah, he's going to pop out some home runs, but he's a speed guy to me that's got to hit singles and doubles and use his speed and get on base and make things happen, and we just haven't seen it.
Joe McIlvaine, what do you see as the likely playoff teams for both the National American Leagues and as well as the wild card representatives?
All right. Just one thing I wanted to add to when I saw Trey Turner at North Carolina State, that's where he went to school.
Right.
He had the fastest running time to first base I'd ever clocked on a right-hand hitter. He ran 3.8 to first base from the right side, which is unheard of. So he was, scouts grade on a 2 to 8 scale, with 2 being the lowest and 8 being the highest. He was a 9 runner. He was just that fast. I had never seen an infielder that fast. So I think you're right in the sense, just like Castellanos last year, he's gonna come back.
Yeah.
All right. I the way I would see it, nobody's going to catch Atlanta for sure. The Phillies and Miami, I think the Phillies are going to go ahead of Miami at some point here, and I think they'll get in. Cincinnati, the one thing you worry about with Cincinnati is their veteran players went down. They brought in all these rookies, and the rookies have done great and propelled them to the top of the standings here. But down the stretch, sometimes in September, rookies struggle a little bit more. So I'm going to go with Milwaukee there over Cincinnati. And the Cubs, maybe not. We'll wait and see. They got that curse of Wrigley or whatever they want to call it to work against. I think you're right on the Dodgers. I think they're going to make a trade here in the next 24 hours. I'd be surprised if they didn't. I think they'll win
Verlander?
Well, that's a hot topic right now. I'm not so sure about that, but it could be. There's a big thing that Atlanta's trying to get Verlander too, and they don't want to trade Verlander in the same division. So I don't think Atlanta's going to get him. So the Dodgers might end up with him. In the American League, the surprise of baseball has been Baltimore. They have done wonders. Tampa Bay really went from, they were out in front by 11 games at one point, and now they're in second place. So that shows you how well Baltimore's done. I think they're both going to get in. In the Central, you're going to get only one team because Minnesota or Cleveland will be one or the other, because the fifth place team in the American League East has a better record than the first place team in the American League Central.
Not a very good division.
And in the West, of course, you got Texas and Houston. They'll probably both get in there. I'm kind of personally hoping, my son is the scouting director for the California Angels, so I'm kind of hoping the Angels creep up there and find their way in as well.
With Mike Trout being from South Jersey, and once upon a time I introduced Mike Trout in the Carpenter Cup, because every year I get a chance to do this wonderful local high school showcase for both men and women that the Phillies host. And we've had some great players come through there. I think there's something like 24 people that played Major League Baseball that participated in the Carpenter Cup. It's incredible. And we also do the Bill Giles Invitational. Mickey, you presented the awards at the end of those, and the Liberty Bell Classic. Joey Wendell out of Westchester, who played for Miami and Tampa. And it's, to me, a lot of great baseball going on in the area. Before we go tonight, we have about a minute. I want to thank our Director of Photography, Ellen Foreman, and her assistant, Jack Foreman, and Director of Transportation, Jason Berkowitz. Big helps to us each and every week. Chris Ermer is our on-site producer at Chickies and Pete's. Back at WBCB Radio is Gus Barber. Now, we'll be with you next Monday, August the 7th, at 12 noon, again, from Chickies and Pete's here at 1526 Packer, because the Phillies are home next Monday night. And right now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd ask you to express your appreciation to Mickey Morandini, Phillies All-Star second baseman, and Joe McIlvaine, former general manager of the San Diego Padres and New York Mets.
Nice. Pleasure.
I'm Dan Baker. Thank you for listening. We'll talk with you and see you next week.
You've been listening to the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session. Tonight's show is an exclusive presentation of 1490 WBCB.